The inn at the foot of the dead mountain had one guest left. Silence. But silence was about to break. The door swung open. Fog rolled in first, then the shape of something too large to be human. Floorboards screamed under the weight. Each step bent wood like old bone.
That door hasn't opened this late in months.
She stood in the doorway, an orc empress in obsidian armor, crowned with antlers, two ghosts at her back.
Take a seat by the fire. I'll have tea ready in a moment.
The ghosts watched with hollow eyes as their empress stepped forward into the candlelight. Raymond's hands found the kettle by memory, tilting it over the cup without a single drop spilled. The candle flickered. Neither guest nor innkeeper acknowledged the cold that clung to her. Tea steamed into the space between them, and Raymond, blind since childhood, had no idea what he was serving.
You open your door at midnight to a stranger whose footsteps shake your floor, and you offer tea.
A traveler's a traveler. The hour doesn't change the need.
Most men would be afraid. They'd see what I am and reach for a weapon.
I stopped being afraid of what I can't see the day I lost my sight. Now I only judge by voice and by need.
She studied his eyes, clouded, still fixed on nothing, and the weight in her chest shifted.
You cannot see me at all.
Not since the fever took my eyes when I was a boy. I remember light, but shapes are gone.
For 300 years, everyone who looked upon her flinched. This man could not.
Then I will drink your tea, innkeeper, and perhaps stay until the snow melts.
That's the first thing you've said that sounds like a traveler, not a ghost. Stay as long as you need. Since you are staying, traveler, where have you come from?
From over the mountain. A long road.
The mountain pass. In midwinter. That route has claimed more travelers than I care to count.
The dangers do not concern me. I have walked worse.
Her voice was stone-worn smooth by centuries, but Raymond heard the fissures beneath, a weariness no blizzard could match.
I have a spare room upstairs, a clean bed, a small hearth. No charge for those who need it.
She looked toward the door, then at the man who could not see her. Something ancient in her gave way.
Then I will accept your room and your breakfast.
Raymond rose, his cane tapping a path to the staircase. She followed, the floor groaning beneath each step. The candle burned low. The inn settled into a deeper quiet, an empress behind a door that had never known a crown, and a blind innkeeper who slept untroubled. By dawn, the smell of fresh bread and brewing tea filled the inn. Raymond's hands moved by touch alone, every step a long practiced ritual. He tilted the kettle over the cup without spilling a drop, then carried the tray to the table.
You rise early for a man who keeps no clock.
The bread knows when the sun's up. My hands follow.
They sat at the small table, porridge steaming beside fresh bread and a pot of tea. For a long while, only the scrape of spoons spoke. She lifted the bread with a strange care, as though it were a relic from a lost world.
Do you always eat alone, innkeeper?
The question lingered in the steam, and something in Raymond's expression softened, a familiar ache.
Most days. The mountain doesn't send many guests anymore.
Then I will stay one more night, if you'll have me.
One night became two. Two became a week. The snow never stopped, and neither did the silent miracles. Raymond sat in the old chair by the fire, the one that used to squeak. He rocked gently, waiting for the familiar wine. It never came.
That chair hadn't been silent in 10 years. Perhaps the cold shrank the wood.
The next morning, he found the window that always stuck in its frame now slid open at a touch.
Strange. I must have oiled it in my sleep.
Mograg watched from the shadows, her spectral attendants invisible, her hands stilled, the hands that had mended the chair and freed the window while he dozed. In the evenings, she sat by the hearth, not as a guest but something quieter. The silence between them no longer needed filling. Raymond rose without a word, found the kettle by memory, and set it to heat.
Still warm. Another cup.
I accept. May the hearth remember this kindness.
The wind that had been whispering for a week finally screamed, burying the inn in a white prison. Raymond fed the fire by touch, reading the heat. The inn was a cage of warmth.
How did a blind man come to run an inn alone?
He smiled, not a happy smile, but one that recognized a pattern. He had been sighted once, caught in a blizzard like this one.
I was a trader, lost on the pass. The old innkeeper found me half dead, gave me tea.
She was blind too, but decades of habit meant she never stumbled. She handed me a key and said, "This place needs young hands."
I stayed to repay the debt. When she died, she left me the inn. She said the hearth remembers kindness.
The room felt smaller, but the silence was not empty. 2 stories of loss pressed together.
You and I are not so different. We both know what it is to be trapped by snow and saved by tea.
She said nothing more. The understanding between them needed no words. Outside, the storm refused to relent, but inside, the inn's fire held. Mograg broke the silence, her voice low.
There was once a ruler of a cold land, bound to a throne of stone and spirit. She could not die. The dead served her, a kingdom of ghosts, but she felt nothing but cold.
Raymond did not interrupt. He tilted his head when a voice carried more than words.
It sounds lonely.
Lonely. Yes, lonely enough that she forgot what warmth felt like.
The steam from the kettle curled between them like a question mark.
Then she should find somewhere that reminds her what living feels like. A warm hearth, a cup of tea.
Her breath caught. The faintest tremor, and for the first time in centuries, the Empress of the Deadlands wondered if a blind innkeeper might understand what a kingdom of ghosts never could. The storm broke at dawn, and with it came a traveler. Old, shivering, half-dead, Raymond guided him to the hearth, his hands steady as always.
"Thank you. I thought the mountain would claim me like the others."
In the corner, Mograg pulled her hood low. Her spectral attendants flickered, nearly visible.
"Tell me, Innkeeper, do you fear the Deadlands? Do you know what rules there?"
The old man's voice dropped. An undying empress, they say an orc witch who commands the dead. Mograg's teacup clattered softly. The candle flame bent as if a cold breath passed.
I serve tea to whoever comes through that door, spirit or mortal. The mountain's stories don't change the brew.
The traveler looked from Raymond to the shadowy figure in the corner, then quickly away. He left before the sun was high, but the inn held the taste of his fear long after. After the traveler left, Mograg did not move from her corner. Her hood still hid her face.
You've been quiet since the old man left. Did his tales trouble you?
Tales have power. I wondered, if a traveler came here and you knew they had done terrible things, would you still serve them?
Raymond tilted his head, the way he did when a question carried more than curiosity.
I'd serve them tea first. What they've done is between them and whatever gods they answer to.
Even if they were a monster.
Monsters don't usually ask for tea. People do.
Something shifted in her face, a wall cracking, a long closed door inching open. She reached for the teapot and refilled his cup without a word. Her hand trembled only slightly, and for the first time, the Empress of the Deadlands dared to hope that a blind innkeeper might see her as something other than a monster. Winter thawed into a reluctant spring. The inn no longer felt like a refuge from the cold. It felt alive.
The woodpile is low. Let me take the axe. I need to earn my keep.
Axe is behind the door. Swing true. I'll hear if you miss.
He heard the rhythm of her chopping, strong, steady, unhesitating, the sound of a worker who had nothing to prove.
Now teach me to make your tea. I've watched, but watching is not knowing.
Raymond took her hands, large, clawed, powerful, and guided them to the kettle.
Tilt until you hear the pitch change. That's how you know the cup is full. The inn hasn't felt this full since the old innkeeper died. Funny, she never said a word, but her presence fills every room.
Evenings now passed in easy silence. 2 figures by the hearth, the tea never cold, the ghosts unseen but peaceful. She was no longer a guest. She was part of the inn, and part of its keeper's quiet world. One afternoon, a heavy cask of ale needed shifting from the cellar. Raymond reached for the hoist, then paused.
Let me.
Her hand closed around the cask's rim. With a single, effortless heave, she set it upright on the floor.
That cask weighs more than a grown man. I didn't hear you strain. How?
The air around her chilled, a sudden cold breath that made the candle flame shiver. Behind her, a spectral form flickered, then vanished.
I felt that cold, like walking past a tomb. Mograg, is something wrong?
I carry secrets, Innkeeper. Things about me that would make the man in the corner flee.
Unless those secrets turn you into someone who pours cold tea, they won't change much for me.
I've ruled over the dead. I stand at the edge of living memory. I am not the quiet woodsman you think.
Raymond reached across and found her hand, rough and cold. He held it.
I've never been one for titles. You pour a good cup of tea now. That's what I know.
You don't understand. I've done terrible things. I've been a queen of sorrow.
I understand. You stayed when you could have left. You fixed my chair, my window. The dead don't do repairs.
The ghostly attendants behind her stirred, as if recognizing that someone saw them not as horrors, but as part of her.
No one has ever looked past the crown. Not in 3 centuries.
I can't see the crown. I only hear the woman who chops my wood and steeps my tea. That's enough for me.
She closed her eyes. The cold in the room ebbed, replaced by the hearth's steady warmth.
Then I will stay, not as a guest, as whatever you'll have me be.
Fine by me. Now, the kettle's cooling. Let's not waste a good pot.
And in that small inn, the Empress of the Dead Lands shed a tear into her tea, and for a moment the ghost smiled. The next morning arrived with a pale sun, but the inn felt different, charged, as if the very air held its breath. Mograg lingered by the window, her hand pressed to the glass. A faint tremor ran through the antlers of her crown. Beyond the glass, a vision shimmered, a desolate plain of black trees and frozen earth, the Deadlands yearning for their queen.
You are standing still. That's not like you. What do you see?
Only a memory. A place I left behind. It calls, but I do not wish to answer.
Her spectral attendants stirred, their translucent forms flickering with agitation. One leaned close and whispered words only the dead could speak. A sudden cold swept the room. Frost spread across the teacup on the table, and Raymond felt it, a grave, deep chill against his fingers.
Mograg, this cold, it's the same as before. If something pulls at you, you can tell me.
My kingdom wakes. It knows I am far, but I will not leave tonight. Not before breakfast.
The ghosts fell silent, but the frost on the teacup remained, a promise that the Empress's past would not be denied. A lone traveler stumbled in just past noon, his cloak torn, his eyes wild. He spoke of a band of raiders moving through the foothills, men who left nothing but ash. Raymond poured the man a strong cup, but his hands were slower than usual. He had heard tales of this band before. They preyed on isolated holdings.
This inn has stood for 50 years. I won't abandon it to wolves.
You should go. A blind man cannot fight.
And leave you here. You are my guest.
I am more than a guest. I could end them before they touched your door. But if I do, you will finally see what I am.
I already know what you are. Someone who mends chairs and heats my kettle. The rest doesn't frighten me.
Her pale gold eyes glowed in the dim light. Behind her, the spectral attendants drew closer, a silent army waiting.
Then I will stay. But when they come, I will not hide. I will protect this place with every ghost at my command.
That evening, the wind carried the distant sound of hooves, and Raymond knew the raiders would be at his door before dawn. Raymond moved through the inn one last time, his fingers tracing every familiar groove. He had always known this place might someday be taken, but not like this.
When they come, stay behind me. I will call the court, but you may not wish to see what answers.
I have been blind a long time. Whatever you call forth, it cannot be uglier than greed.
This is not a trick of light. Innkeeper, the cold will cut, the dead will fill this room, and you will know exactly what I am.
I already know. You are the person who stayed. The rest is just furniture.
She closed her eyes. The crown upon her brow seemed heavier for a moment, then lighter as she made her choice.
Then I will stand. I will not hide. But if you need to look away, do not hesitate.
He reached for the kettle, the one action that steadied him, and set it to heat.
Before they break the door, one last cup, with the woman who mended my chair.
Outside, the hoofbeats turned to thunder. The inn's timbers trembled, and the fog churned like a living thing. The door shuddered under a heavy blow. Splinters flew. A voice outside, "Open up, old man, or we'll burn this hovel with you in it."
Stay calm. They always talk first when they're not sure what's inside.
Mograg stepped forward, her hand raised. The temperature dropped. They will not need to talk long. The door burst inward. Gareth, the raider leader, stood silhouetted against the snowy darkness, torch in hand.
Well, a blind fool and what in the nine hells are you?
Mograg's eyes flared gold. Her crown seemed to pulse, and the first of the spectral court began to solidify around her.
I'll pour the tea. You handle the door.
Gareth laughed, but it died in his throat as the temperature dropped further. Frost crackled across the floorboards.
You have trespassed on summer ground. Leave now, and I may forget your faces.
Kill the green one first. The blind man is worth nothing.
The raiders lunged, but the air turned to ice. A wall of pale forms rose between them and the innkeeper, and the first man to touch it screamed,
My court, attend. Let these living fools feel the bite of the grave.
Ghostly orc warriors swept forward, spectral blades passing through flesh without drawing blood, yet every raider's torch died at their touch.
What sorcery is this? Fall back. Fall back. You dogs.
The tea stays hot. You are handling them well.
One raider, braver than the rest, hurled an axe at Mograg. It passed through a shimmering shield of ghosts and clattered harmlessly to the floor.
I have ruled the dead for 300 years. Did you think your rusted iron could touch me?
The remaining raiders fled into the snow, their torches guttering. Only Gareth stood frozen, sword trembling in his grip.
That sounded like less company. Should I pour for two or for one?
Behind Mograg, the spectral court thickened, a legion of pale warriors awaiting her command. The Empress had made her choice, and the inn had never felt so cold. Gareth's sword clattered to the floor. He fled into the snow without a word, and the door hung broken on its hinges. The spectral court held its silence. Then, like morning mist, the warriors faded one by one, until only her two attendants remained.
It's quiet now. Did they go out for a walk? Or is it safe to pour?
They are gone. You are safe, but you must know what protected you.
I felt the cold. I heard the dead. You don't need to hide it from me.
I am Mograg Throven, Empress of the Dead Lands. The cold was my kingdom. The ghosts were my court.
Then you should have more tea. You've had a long night.
She stared at the cup. 3 centuries of solitude, and a blind innkeeper offered her the same thing he gave any stranger, tea. A tear slid down her cheek, but this time it was not cold. The inn felt warmer than any palace she had ever ruled. And so the blind human innkeeper poured tea for the Empress of the Dead Lands, and the cursed lands beyond the mountain began to thaw. The inn did not change its sign, but everything else shifted. Flowers appeared on the windowsill, and the ghosts learned to polish cups.
I once held court in a hall of frozen stone. Now my court is a hearth and a kettle that never runs dry.
A good court keeps the tea hot. The dead make decent staff once they stop trying to scare the customers.
Beyond the mountain, the Deadlands felt the shift. Pale green shoots broke through the frost, and the black trees budded.
My kingdom is waking. For the first time in 3 centuries, the Deadlands feel warm.
The spectral attendants no longer hovered in shadow. One took up the broom with carved flowers, sweeping the hearth with ghostly care. Travelers began to return, and the inn became known as the place where even the restless dead found peace. Raymond and Mograg often sat outside, not speaking, just present. 2 unlikely monarchs of a quiet kingdom.
You know, some people still call this place the Last Inn, but I think we've proved it's a first.
In the Deadlands, the first flower bloomed on the steps of the empty throne, a tiny white blossom that had never grown there before. The inn at twilight glowed like a promise kept, the lantern of beacon not just for the lost, but for the dead who wished to rest.
Mograg, do the ghosts ever tire of serving tea? They've been at it for weeks.
They rest when I do. Now they have a purpose beyond eternal waiting.
Her crown rested on the table beside the teapot, the dark iron and bone seeming to warm in the candlelight. One of the spectral attendants brushed a translucent hand against Raymond's shoulder. He smiled, knowing the touch by its cool whisper.
I was a queen of sorrow. Now I am something without a name.
Names are for introductions. We are past that.
He found the kettle already warm that evening. She stood by the window, watching the first stars touch the newly green mountain.
You gave me mornings. I had forgotten what dawn looked like.
The teapot and the crown sat side by side on the old table. Iron and clay, power and kindness. And in that quiet inn, the world remembered how to hope.
Every morning now, the kettle sings before sunrise. It never sang before you came.
She poured the tea herself, the way he had taught her, a gentle tilt. The pitch change, the quiet satisfaction.
I never thought I would learn the language of a kettle, but here I am, fluent in steam.
They sat on the bench outside, the inn's new sign painted simply, Summer Court, no other title needed. Spectral attendants moved through the garden, ghostly hands tending flowers that now grew where frost once reigned.
You gave a dead land hope. That's more than any throne gives.
You gave me a home. That is more than any crown.
In the distance, the mountain pass no longer loomed as a threat. It was a bridge between realms. The Deadlands bloomed, the black trees now silver green, the air no longer a tomb's breath. And in the quiet inn, the blind innkeeper and his Empress of ghosts lived not for legend, but for the next cup of tea. Years passed, but the inn never aged. The hearth stayed warm, the kettle never rusted, and the 2 who lived there grew only deeper in stillness.
I used to wonder who'd be the last guest through that door. Turns out it was a queen, and she never left.
I stopped being a queen the night you poured me tea. Now I am just a permanent resident.
And so the last inn became the first, not in any record, but in the hearts of those who found its door unlocked. On clear nights, the spectral attendants still polished cups, their silence a hymn to the one who gave them purpose. The crown remained on the table beside the teapot, gathering dust, motes like tiny stars.
Blind human innkeeper poured tea for a strange orc. Sounds like the start of a bad joke.
It's the best story I've ever lived. And I've lived 3 centuries.
They sat in silence, each holding a cup, watching a sunset that Raymond felt in the warmth on his skin. And the teapot and crown stood guard over a home that had, against all odds, taught an Empress of the dead how to be alive.